63% of governments globally have already begun developing sovereign AI capabilities. By 2026, that number will be north of 80%. But here's what matters. Most of them are building on borrowed infrastructure. That gap between intent and execution isn't a technology problem. It's a power problem. And it's reshaping geopolitics faster than any trade agreement ever could. Think about what sovereign AI actually means. It's not just about national pride or technological self-sufficiency. It's about control. Control over your data. Control over your critical infrastructure. Control over the algorithms that decide everything from who gets a loan to how your power grid responds to demand. Right now, if you're a government in Singapore, India, or anywhere in Southeast Asia, you're running your most sensitive operations on infrastructure owned by companies headquartered in California or Virginia. Your military procurement systems, your healthcare data, your financial surveillance, all of it flowing through servers and algorithms you don't own and can't fully audit. That vulnerability isn't theoretical. In 2025, across the Asia-Pacific region, 3 major governments face public incidents where AI systems trained on foreign datasets produced culturally misaligned or geopolitically problematic outputs. Not attacks, just misalignment. Now imagine when those systems actually do something critical. Imagine when they fail in ways that affect national security, economic stability, or public health, and imagine explaining to your citizens why you trusted that decision to a foreign entity. This isn't paranoia. According to McKinsey's 2026 Government AI Readiness Report, 78% of public sector leaders in developed economies cite data sovereignty and operational independence as their top barrier to AI deployment. The cost of building that independence is staggering. But the cost of not building it is becoming unacceptable. Here's what we're covering today. We're not going to pretend sovereign AI is simple or that every government needs to build everything from scratch. That's a false choice, and it'll bankrupt you. Instead, we're going to walk through exactly what sovereign AI actually requires as a technical and strategic foundation. We're going to show you how countries that are executing this well are doing it. Singapore, India, Japan. They're not all taking the same path, but they're all solving the same core problem. How to build AI capability that serves national interests without sacrificing speed or scale. And we're going to be direct about what this means for multinational organizations, for enterprise leaders, and for anyone building technology in a geopolitically fractured world. Because sovereign AI isn't just a government problem. It's reshaping procurement, security compliance, and how every large organization thinks about infrastructure and trust. By the end of this video, you'll understand the framework. You'll know what's actually happening on the ground, and you'll be able to make decisions about where you build, where you partner, and where you stay independent. That's the difference between reacting to policy and leading through it. Point 1. Sovereign AI requires 3 pillars, not 1. Most governments make the mistake of thinking sovereignty is about data residency. Data stays in country. Problem solved. That's the surface level. It's wrong. Real sovereignty requires 3 things working in concert. First, data residency and control. Second, algorithmic transparency and auditability. And third, domestic technical talent and institutional capacity to maintain it all long term. Let's look at the evidence. According to Gartner's 2026 AI governance study, governments that attempted to achieve sovereignty through data residency alone saw a 62% failure rate in maintaining compliance beyond year 2. Why? Because they could keep data in country but still couldn't audit it, couldn't modify it, and couldn't build on it without external expertise. India's approach is instructive here. The Indian government launched its AI mission in 2024. And by 2025 they were already facing the Pillar 1 problem. They had the data residency framework, but they lacked the domestic model development capacity. Their solution wasn't to hire everything domestically overnight. That's impossible. Instead, they created a partnership model where data stays in country. Core model development happens with domestic institutions like IIT Bombay and Niti Aayog, collaborating with global research partners. But the architecture and training loops remain Indian-controlled. That's pillar thinking. How you apply this. If you're a public sector leader, stop thinking data residency is the end goal. It's the beginning. You need concurrent investments in 3 tracks. Infrastructure hardening, audit and governance capability, and talent development. They move in parallel, not sequence. Point 2. The infrastructure layer is where most sovereign AI initiatives actually fail. And the failure is predictable. Governments want to be sovereign, so they decide to build indigenous AI infrastructure, models, data centers, training pipelines, owned and operated domestically. That's admirable. That's also financially ruinous if you approach it the way most countries do. Here's the evidence. According to IDC's 2026 Sovereign AI Infrastructure Report, countries investing in full end-to-end domestic AI infrastructure without strategic partnerships spent an average of $4.2 billion in their first 5 years to reach operational capability. Countries using a hybrid approach, domestic control over critical layers with strategic partnerships on commodity components, spent $1.3 billion for equivalent capability. Look at Singapore's model. Singapore can't build everything domestically. They don't have the population, the semiconductor manufacturing base, or the vendor lock-in to justify that investment. So they made a different bet. They invested heavily in model governance and orchestration layers. They built sovereign AI not by making everything local, but by becoming the control point. They partnered with NVIDIA for infrastructure, with research institutions across Asia-Pacific for domain-specific models. But the Singapore government owns the integration layer, the data governance layer, and the orchestration logic that decides which models run where and under what constraints. That's sovereignty through architectural control, not through complete ownership. Application. If you're building sovereign AI infrastructure, don't ask yourself whether you can build everything. Ask yourself what layers actually matter for sovereignty and what layers can be outsourced without surrendering control. Put your capital and talent into the layers that others can't easily replicate. Usually, that's not the compute. That's the orchestration, governance, and domain knowledge layers. Point 3. And this one changes the entire operating model. Sovereignty doesn't lock you into isolation. Done right, it actually increases your leverage in the global AI ecosystem. Most governments treat sovereignty as a defensive move. We'll build our own systems so we're not dependent. But that's scarcity thinking. Sovereignty, when executed as a technical capability, becomes a platform for partnership from a position of strength. The evidence is still emerging, but we saw this clearly in 2025. According to the World Economic Forum's Sovereign AI and Geopolitics report, governments that had achieved operational sovereign AI capability in specific domains, whether that was healthcare AI, financial services AI, or defense AI, were able to negotiate technology partnerships 47% faster and at more favorable terms than countries still operating entirely on foreign platforms. Why? Because they had proof of concept. They had exit options. They had the technical credibility to say no. Japan is running this playbook. Japan built sovereign capability in large language models through RIKEN and domestically backed ventures. They're not using those models exclusively domestically. They're partnering with Southeast Asian governments to build regional AI infrastructure. They're exporting that capability. They're becoming a trusted, geopolitically aligned technology partner across the Asia-Pacific region. That's not isolation. That's influence. That's built on the foundation of sovereignty, but executed as leadership. Application. Don't frame sovereign AI as defensive. Frame it as the foundation for preferred partnerships. Once you've demonstrated you can build and operate critical AI systems independently, you can choose your partners instead of accepting whoever's available. That's a fundamentally different negotiating position. That's where government AI strategy intersects with economic strategy and becomes real leverage. Let's pause on the mechanics for a moment and talk about the actual state of play. It's 2026. Sovereign AI is no longer a question of if, but of how, and how fast. The countries that will matter in the next decade are the ones executing this now. They're not waiting for perfect models. They're not waiting for complete domestic supply chains. They're building institutional capability in parallel with technical capability. They're learning. India is running this experiment at scale. Singapore is executing it with precision. Japan is building regional influence on it. What they have in common is this: they stopped waiting for external validation. They invested. They made mistakes. They adapted. And they're now negotiating from a position of actual capability, not theoretical intention. For organizations operating in these regions, for executives making decisions about where to build infrastructure, where to process sensitive data. Thanks for listening. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to Apex Minds D4J for more powerful insights. See you in the next one.